Welcome to the path to Buddhist wisdom, where we embark on a journey of exploration and growth together. Today, we are diving into the fascinating emotional world of one of the most grounded and reliable zodiac signs, Taurus. Known for their steady nature, this earth sign can sometimes surprise us with how deeply they feel, especially when they're hurt. Though Tauruses are typically calm, their emotional pain can manifest in ways that may not be immediately obvious. In today's video, we'll uncover 21 distinct signs that a Taurus is emotionally hurt. Some of these signs are subtle, while others are more obvious, but all of them reveal the complexity of a Taurus in a world when they are in emotional distress. Trust me, the second sign will definitely leave you speechless, so make sure you stick with me until the end. Before we dive into the signs, take a moment to think about your own zodiac sign. How do you react when you're hurt emotionally? I would love to read your thoughts in the comments below. By the way, if you're curious about how the moon influences your emotional world, check out the link in the description for a personalized moon reading. Now, let's begin. Sign number 21, Taurus becomes distant. One of the most noticeable signs that a Taurus is emotionally hurt is their sudden distance from others. Tauruses, generally known for their warm and dependable nature, tend to retreat into themselves when facing emotional turmoil. When they are hurt, they prefer to keep their feelings hidden rather than opening up. This behavior is not an act of ignoring others, but rather a natural defense mechanism designed to shield their vulnerable heart. I remember a Taurus friend of mine who became distant after a falling out with someone they trusted. They stopped answering calls, avoided social media, and seemed withdrawn in every way. It wasn't that they didn't care, it was simply their way of dealing with pain. In moments like these, a Taurus needs time and space to process their feelings. This emotional withdrawal is a signal that they are working through their internal struggles in private. In Buddhism, this detachment can be compared to the practice of mindfulness and non-attachment, taking a step back from external distractions to focus on healing. Just like in meditation, the silence offers an opportunity for deep reflection. Sign number 20, loss of interest in activities. Another clear sign that a Taurus is emotionally wounded is their loss of interest in activities they once enjoyed. A Taurus is usually someone who finds joy in the simple pleasures of life, like a good meal, gardening, or spending time with close friends. But when they are hurt, these things often lose their appeal. A Taurus might stop doing the activities that brought them joy. For example, a Taurus colleague of mine, after a difficult breakup, stopped coming to our weekly book club meetings, something they had always loved. Their lack of enthusiasm wasn't a sign of laziness, it was an indicator that their heart was weighed down by their emotional pain. This change in behavior is a reflection of the inner turmoil they are facing. When a Taurus withdraws from things that once brought them happiness, it's because their emotional energy is consumed by their wounds. From a Buddhist perspective, this detachment mirrors the concept of suffering, or dukkha. It's not that they want to avoid joy, it's that their emotional distress prevents them from experiencing it fully. Sign number 19, absolute silence. A Taurus who is hurt often chooses to retreat into silence rather than expressing their emotions verbally. For a sign known for its steady and reliable nature, silence may seem out of character. But when their heart is in pain, a Taurus may find it incredibly difficult to articulate their feelings. I once had a close Taurus friend who, after a betrayal, became completely silent. She withdrew from all communication. Not because she didn't care, but because she simply didn't know how to talk about what had happened. This silence became her shield, protecting her from further vulnerability. In Buddhist philosophy, silence is seen as a powerful tool for self-reflection and meditation. However, when used as a defense mechanism, it can signal an emotional wound. The silence a Taurus exhibits is often not a sign of indifference but a way to protect themselves until they can process their emotions. If you notice a Taurus becoming unusually quiet, it's important to recognize that they are likely struggling internally. Sign number 18, acts indifferent. When a Taurus is emotionally hurt, they may begin acting indifferent toward the things and people around them. The warmth and attentiveness they usually show others can be replaced by a cold, distant demeanor. This apathy is often a defense mechanism, a way of masking their vulnerability. A Taurus may seem to stop caring about things they once valued. They might act as though nothing matters, even when they are quietly suffering inside. A Taurus I know, after experiencing a personal setback, began showing little interest in family gatherings or even their own hobbies. To others, this appeared as apathy, but in reality, it was a sign that they were deeply hurt and needed space to heal. This indifferent attitude isn't a reflection of their true feelings, it's a way for them to protect themselves. In Buddhism, we talk about right understanding, which includes recognizing when our emotional defenses are blocking us from fully engaging with the world. For a Taurus, this indifference is a temporary phase. With patience and understanding, they will eventually open up once they have had the time to heal. Sign number 17, sudden anger. Though Tauruses are generally known for their calm and patient demeanor, when hurt, they can experience sudden bursts of anger. This emotional outburst is often a sign that their pain has reached a boiling point, and they don't know how else to deal with it. A Taurus friend of mine, who is usually the most level-headed person I know, once became incredibly irritable after a betrayal. Small things that normally wouldn't bother them, like traffic or a forgotten errand, triggered intense frustration. This sudden shift in temperament was not because they were angry at these trivial matters, but because their deeper emotional pain was too overwhelming to process healthily. In Buddhism, we recognize that anger is often a secondary emotion, a response to deeper feelings of hurt, fear, or loss. For a Taurus, this anger is a defense mechanism. Rather than confronting their pain directly, they might lash out as a way to regain control over their emotions. Understanding this allows us to approach a Taurus with compassion, offering them a safe space to work through their emotional wounds without judgment. Sign number 16, avoids confrontation. When a Taurus is emotionally hurt, they will often avoid confrontation at all costs. Instead of addressing the issue directly, they may retreat further into themselves. This avoidance is not about running away from the problem, but rather about protecting themselves from more pain. Taurus values peace and stability, so when they're hurt, the idea of fighting or confronting the source of their emotional distress feels unbearable. A Taurus friend of mine, who was deeply hurt by a close friend's betrayal, avoided speaking about the issue altogether. Instead of discussing their feelings or confronting the person involved, they chose to ignore the problem, hoping it would go away on its own. It was painful to witness because I knew that, deep inside, they were struggling to find the right way to process their pain. In Buddhist teachings, we learn that conflict often arises from attachment and ego. A Taurus avoidance of confrontation is an instinctual effort to protect their emotional well-being. But it's also a reminder that unresolved emotions can create more tension and suffering. Sometimes, confronting the issue is necessary for healing, but for a Taurus, it may take time before they feel ready to face the source of their pain. Sign number 15, lack of communication. Another clear sign that a Taurus is hurting is when they become less communicative. Communication is something that a Taurus typically values, especially with those they trust. However, when they are emotionally wounded, they may choose to close themselves off and become quiet. They might stop responding to messages, avoid phone calls, or simply become uncharacteristically silent in person. A Taurus I know, after experiencing a difficult family issue, withdrew into themselves and stopped responding to messages and phone calls. At first, I thought maybe they were just busy, but I soon realized that their silence was a direct reflection of their emotional state. They didn't want to discuss their pain with anyone. It wasn't that they didn't care, they just didn't know how to express their hurt. From a Buddhist perspective, we often speak of silence as a powerful tool for self-reflection. But when silence is used as a defense mechanism, it becomes a sign of emotional distress. Recognizing when a Taurus pulls back into silence can help you understand their emotional state and give them the space they need. It's important to be patient and allow them the time to open up when they are ready. Sign number 14, growing distrust. When a Taurus is hurt, they may develop a sense of distrust toward others. This is one of the more subtle signs of emotional pain, but it's incredibly significant. Taurus is a sign that values loyalty and stability, so when they are hurt by someone they trusted, it can cause a shift in how they view others. They may start to question the motives of those around them, even those they've known for a long time. A Taurus friend of mine, after experiencing betrayal in a personal relationship, became increasingly cautious and suspicious of everyone around them. They began to second-guess their friends and even family, unsure of who they could truly trust. This growing distrust wasn't about their friends or family, it was a reflection of their own vulnerability. They were hurt and didn't want to be hurt again. In Buddhism, the idea of trust is deeply connected to the concept of interdependence, the understanding that we are all connected, and we must trust the process of life. For a Taurus, however, when trust is broken, it can feel like the foundation they've built their life upon has been shattered. It's essential to recognize when a Taurus is struggling with distrust and to offer them reassurance and understanding. Sign number 13, reacts defensively. A Taurus who is emotionally hurt may react defensively when approached by others. This defensiveness is a natural response to feeling vulnerable and exposed. Instead of addressing the issue head-on, they may put up walls to protect themselves. This can come across as coldness or hostility, but it's important to understand that these reactions are rooted in emotional pain. I remember a Taurus colleague who became extremely defensive after a misunderstanding in the workplace. Normally, they were the most approachable person in the office, but during this time, they were quick to snap at anyone who tried to speak to them. It was clear that they were hurt, but instead of opening up about it, they pushed people away. In Buddhist philosophy, we learn that defensiveness stems from fear and attachment to our ego. When a Taurus feels emotionally wounded, they instinctively try to protect themselves by building walls. This reaction is a sign that they need support but may not know how to ask for it. Approaching them with compassion and patience can help break down those walls, allowing them to heal in their own time. Sign number 12, puts on a mask of strength. Even when a Taurus is hurt, they often try to appear strong and unaffected by their emotions. This is one of the most common signs of emotional pain in a Taurus. Instead of expressing their vulnerability, they mask their true feelings with a facade of strength and confidence. They may act as if everything is fine, even when they are struggling deeply inside. A Taurus friend of mine, who was going through a rough patch in their personal life, continued to act as though nothing was wrong. They attended social events, kept up with their work responsibilities, and smiled through it all. But I could see the sadness in their eyes. They were trying to appear strong because they didn't want to show their vulnerability to others. From a Buddhist perspective, the practice of non-attachment helps us release the need to appear strong or in control. But for a Taurus, appearing strong is often an instinctive response to emotional pain. It's a way for them to protect themselves from further hurt. Recognizing this behavior in a Taurus can help us approach them with care, giving them the space to open up when they're ready. Sign number 11, gives in excessively in decisions. When a Taurus is emotionally hurt, they may become more passive in their decision-making. Known for their strong will and determination, a Taurus who is hurt may start second-guessing themselves and letting others take control of decisions. This shift in behavior is a clear sign that they are emotionally overwhelmed and unsure of their own abilities. A Taurus friend of mine, after a difficult personal situation, became excessively passive when it came to making decisions. They stopped asserting themselves, allowing others to take the lead even in matters that normally required their input. This was a stark contrast to their usual decisive nature, and it was evident that they were struggling to handle their emotions. In Buddhism, the practice of mindfulness helps us stay grounded and clear-headed in the face of emotional turmoil. For a Taurus, however, emotional pain can cloud their judgment and make them feel uncertain. Recognizing when a Taurus is overly passive can help us support them in regaining their confidence and strength. Sign number 10, avoids emotional closeness. When a Taurus is hurt, they may pull away from others emotionally. They value emotional closeness and connection, but when they're feeling vulnerable, they often withdraw from these connections to protect themselves from further pain. A Taurus who is hurt will be reluctant to open up, share their emotions, or get too close to anyone, fearing that getting close could lead to more emotional suffering. I remember a Taurus acquaintance who, after a falling out with a close friend, distanced themselves not just physically, but emotionally as well. They stopped confiding in people, stopped sharing their thoughts, and became almost unreachable. They kept their emotions bottled up, unwilling to allow anyone to get too close. At first, I assumed they were just busy, but soon I realized that this emotional distance was a sign of their pain. In Buddhism, we talk about the importance of emotional vulnerability and connection. But when a Taurus pulls away, it's not out of disregard, it's a defense mechanism. Understanding this withdrawal can help us approach them with patience and compassion, giving them the time and space they need to heal and regain trust in themselves and others. Sign number 9, seeks comfort in food or material things. A Taurus who is emotionally hurt may seek comfort in food or material possessions. This behavior isn't about greed, but about temporarily soothing their emotional distress. A Taurus may turn to food, shopping, or other indulgent activities as a way to escape the emotional pain they are feeling. This can manifest as overeating, indulging in material pleasures, or seeking out temporary distractions. For example, a Taurus friend of mine, after a breakup, started binge eating their favorite comfort foods. It wasn't about the food itself, but about finding a momentary escape from the emotional pain they were experiencing. They used these distractions to fill the emotional void they felt inside. While this may seem like an unhealthy coping mechanism, it's a common response to emotional distress. In Buddhist teachings, we learn that attachment to material things and pleasures can lead to suffering. A Taurus seeking comfort in external sources is, in a way, looking for something to help them fill the emptiness they feel inside. Recognizing this behavior can remind us of the importance of emotional support over material distractions. For a Taurus, Offering understanding and companionship can help them heal in a healthier way. Sign number 8 focuses on work or personal projects. A Taurus who is hurt may immerse themselves in work or personal projects as a way of distracting themselves from their emotional pain. Instead of dealing with their emotions directly, they may throw themselves into their career, hobbies, or other productive endeavors. This can be a way for them to avoid confronting their feelings, choosing to focus on something tangible rather than dealing with the pain they are experiencing. A Taurus colleague of mine, after a personal crisis, became almost obsessive about work. They threw themselves into their projects, stayed late at the office, and spent little time on personal matters. It was clear that they were using work as a way to avoid dealing with their emotions. While they seemed productive, it was a sign that they were not processing their pain in a healthy way. In Buddhism, we often speak about the importance of balance in life. Work and personal projects are necessary for fulfillment, but when they are used as a means to escape emotional pain, they can become a source of distraction. A Taurus using work as a defense mechanism is not necessarily a sign of dedication, it's a sign of emotional avoidance. Recognizing this pattern can help us encourage a Taurus to take time for self-care and emotional healing. Sign number 7 responds with sarcasm or cynicism. When a Taurus is emotionally hurt, they may respond with sarcasm or cynicism as a way to protect themselves. This humor becomes a mask for their deeper emotions, allowing them to deflect their sadness, frustration, or pain with biting remarks. By using sarcasm, they can shield themselves from vulnerability and avoid directly addressing their emotional turmoil. I had a Taurus friend who, after being hurt by someone close to them, began responding to others with sarcastic comments and cynical remarks. Instead of talking about their feelings, they used humor to deflect attention from their pain. It was clear that their cynicism was a mask for the hurt they were feeling inside. In Buddhist philosophy, we learn that humor can be a powerful tool for healing, but it can also be a defense mechanism when used to avoid vulnerability. A Taurus using sarcasm is not necessarily being dismissive or rude, they are simply trying to protect themselves from emotional exposure. Recognizing this behavior in a Taurus allows us to approach them with gentleness, helping them navigate their emotions without further masking their pain. Sign number 6 shows lack of patience. A Taurus who is emotionally hurt will often experience a loss of patience. Known for their calm and steady demeanor, a Taurus usually handles stress and frustration with grace. However, when they are emotionally wounded, they can become easily irritated or frustrated by minor inconveniences. This sudden lack of patience is a sign that they are struggling to cope with their internal emotional turmoil. I once witnessed a Taurus colleague, who was normally calm and composed, lose their patience over a small mistake at work. They snapped at their coworkers, something that was out of character for them. It was clear that their emotional pain was affecting their ability to stay calm and composed. They were dealing with deeper issues that weren't immediately visible. In Buddhist teachings, we learn that patience is a virtue that can help us navigate emotional pain. For a Taurus, however, emotional distress can trigger impatience. This loss of patience is not a reflection of their usual self, it's a sign of the internal struggle they are facing. Understanding this can help us offer support and give a Taurus the time they need to regain their emotional balance. Sign number 5 withdraws from their social circle. A Taurus who is emotionally hurt often retreats from their social circle. This sign is usually sociable, enjoying time spent with close friends and family, but when they are hurt, they tend to isolate themselves. They may cancel plans, stop responding to messages, or simply avoid social gatherings altogether. This withdrawal is a way for them to protect their emotional well-being and shield themselves from further emotional pain. A Taurus friend of mine, after a personal disappointment, stopped attending our social gatherings. They stopped replying to texts and became harder to reach. It wasn't that they didn't care about us, they just needed time alone to process their emotions. This withdrawal is not a sign of rejection, it's a signal that they need space to heal. In Buddhism, we learn the importance of solitude in our spiritual practice. Solitude allows for reflection, introspection, and healing. For a Taurus, withdrawing from their social circle is their way of taking time for emotional healing. Recognizing this behavior can help us understand their need for space and offer them the understanding they need to feel safe in their emotional recovery. Sign number 4, acts more selfishly. When a Taurus is hurt, they may begin to focus more on their own needs and desires. This behavior can be surprising, as Taurus is generally known for their generosity and attentiveness to others. However, emotional pain can cause them to become more self-centered, as they are trying to cope with their feelings and find comfort in themselves. I recall a Taurus friend who, after a personal betrayal, started becoming more self-focused. They began prioritizing their own needs over those of their friends and family, and their usual willingness to help others faded. While this behavior might seem selfish, it's simply a response to their emotional wounds. A Taurus who is hurting might retreat into themselves because they feel overwhelmed and vulnerable. In Buddhist teachings, we often speak of self-compassion, learning to take care of oneself in times of distress. However, when self-compassion turns into excessive self-focus, it can be a sign of emotional protection. A Taurus who is hurting needs to be reminded that it's okay to focus on healing themselves, but that they don't have to isolate or disregard others in the process. Understanding this behavior can help us approach a Taurus with compassion, offering them the time they need to heal without judgment. Sign number 3, seeks indirect revenge. One of the more subtle signs that a Taurus is hurt is when they seek revenge, not in an overt or confrontational way, but indirectly. They may not confront the person who caused them pain, but instead, they might engage in small acts of defiance or withdrawal as a form of retaliation. This behavior is not typically aggressive but more of a quiet way for them to regain control or feel empowered again. A Taurus I know, after feeling betrayed by a close friend, started to withdraw attention and affection in subtle ways. They didn't confront their friend or even address the issue directly, but they stopped engaging with them in the same way. It wasn't a blatant act of revenge, but a quiet way of showing their hurt. They wanted to make sure the other person understood the consequences of their actions without directly confronting them. In Buddhist teachings, we are reminded that holding on to grudges or seeking revenge only causes us more suffering. While a Taurus might engage in indirect revenge as a way to cope with their pain, it's a sign that they have not yet found peace or forgiveness. Recognizing this behavior gives us the opportunity to show them compassion and help them move toward emotional healing and forgiveness. Sign number 2, feels guilty. When a Taurus is emotionally hurt, they may begin to question their own role in the situation and feel guilty, even when they are not at fault. This self-blame can be overwhelming, and they might start to second-guess their actions and wonder if they could have done something differently to avoid the pain. I had a Taurus colleague who, after a major setback in their career, began blaming themselves for things that were out of their control. They felt guilty for not doing more, for not anticipating the challenges, even though the situation wasn't their fault. This self-doubt can be paralyzing for a Taurus, especially when they feel as though their actions led to their emotional pain. In Buddhism, we learn that guilt is often a product of attachment to the idea of perfection and control. A Taurus might feel responsible for things that are beyond their control, but in reality, they are simply experiencing the suffering of attachment. Helping a Taurus recognize that not everything is their fault can relieve some of the emotional burden they are carrying. Offering reassurance and understanding can help them move past their guilt and begin to heal emotionally. Sign number 1, breaks promises or commitments. Perhaps one of the most telling signs that a Taurus is emotionally hurt is when they break promises or commitments. Normally, Taurus is a sign known for being dependable and trustworthy. But when they are emotionally wounded, they may begin to withdraw from responsibilities they once held dear. This change in behavior can be alarming to those around them, as it seems out of character for a Taurus to break their word or distance themselves from commitments. A Taurus friend of mine, after experiencing a betrayal by a loved one, began to cancel plans, withdraw from social obligations, and even break promises they had made. They didn't want to engage in the usual commitments because they felt emotionally drained and vulnerable. For a Taurus, this behavior is often a way of protecting themselves from further disappointment. They may feel that breaking their commitments is a way of gaining control in a situation where they feel powerless. In Buddhist philosophy, we talk about the importance of trust and integrity in our relationships. When a Taurus breaks promises, it's a sign that their emotional distress has overshadowed their usual reliable nature. Understanding this behavior and offering them patience can allow a Taurus the time they need to rebuild their sense of trust and commitment. We've now explored the final signs of a Taurus who is emotionally hurt, including their struggles with self-worth, their need for reassurance, their fixation on the past, and their tendency to withdraw. These behaviors provide valuable insights into the emotional world of a Taurus, showing us just how deeply they feel when they are wounded. Understanding these signs allows us to offer more effective support to those who are struggling emotionally. For a Taurus, the healing process requires patience, compassion, and time. By recognizing these behaviors, we can help a Taurus navigate their emotional journey and find their way back to emotional balance. In closing, the lessons we've learned about Taurus emotional pain are not just about understanding one zodiac sign, they're universal lessons that apply to all of us. Whether you're a Taurus or not, recognizing when someone is emotionally hurt and offering them understanding and support is essential. The journey of healing is not easy, but through mindfulness, patience, and compassion, we can all find our way through the storm. Thank you for joining me today on the path to Buddhist wisdom. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more insights on zodiac signs and spiritual growth. And as always, I encourage you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. How does your zodiac sign handle emotional pain? Let's continue the conversation and learn from each other's wisdom. Remember, true healing comes from within. Be kind to yourself, and may you find peace on your journey.